Hello everyone, X4its here, and welcome to a long overdue episode of Standoff, and not even an original versus alternate, just an OG stand versus stand matchup, where today we'll be pitting D4C Love Train against the Wonder of You, which will actually be the first episode of Standoff that includes two alternate universe stands. So the theme of Standoff has always been to compare similar abilities and see who comes out on top, so you may be wondering how Love Train and the Wonder of You fit into this criteria, as the overall themes of their powers are total opposites. Love Train controls miracles essentially by manipulating space, placing its user in the positive flow, while the Wonder of You controls calamity, trapping its targets in the negative flow. But although the stands appear to have opposite powers, they actually both operate through the same mechanism, being the balance of energy within the world. That's a major theme explored in parts 7 and 8. And the end result of their abilities is always a redirection of calamity energy, showing that they both manipulate the same law of nature, just in different ways, which proposes an interesting matchup, as what would happen if the physical embodiment of the positive flow went head-to-head with an endless calamity. But before we dive into the greater discussion of how these stands work and who comes out on top, let's first hear a quick word from today's video sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the freshest free-to-play military action game out there, where players can participate in epic multiplayer battles across land, air, and sea, using ground vehicles, aircrafts, and naval vessels spanning an entire century. That's available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Mac. And although War Thunder strives for a realistic battle experience using authentic military vehicles, the game also offers tons of ways to personalize your weaponry through downloading community-made skins and decals, and now even has kawaii anime-themed customization, letting you take your beloved waifus into battle, like with the newly added Japanese AH-1S helicopter Kisarazu in use with the Japanese Self-Defense Forces. And what's even better than having your waifu painted on the side of your helicopter is the new Dakimakura pillows, which can be gently hugged during battle for that extra bit of moral support needed to ensure a victory. And while sporting your anime-themed combat vehicles, you can experience gameplay only found in War Thunder, featuring both renowned and prototype vehicles from the beginning of the 20th century through to modern day from 10 different nations, including ground forces, aviation, and naval vessels that can all participate in a single battle, and all of which can be extensively customized aesthetically and functionally by unlocking additional devices, armor, and special equipment as you play. You'll also be able to engage in battles all over the globe, experiencing environments from Africa to Alaska, creating a truly immersive combat experience through War Thunder's atmospheric and realistic maps, which is further enhanced by the game's advanced graphics and physics, which allows each vehicle to uniquely interact with the game world, making War Thunder's gameplay and visuals a one-of-a-kind experience. So download War Thunder today for free from the link in the description to get your own Dakimakura pillow and other in-game bonuses to bring into battle. So big shout out to War Thunder for sponsoring the video and supporting the channel, but now back to the standoff. So we'll first be taking a look at D4C Love Train, as this ability was the first time Araki truly depicted this concept of balance through a stand. So we should all be familiar with base D4C, incredible offensive power and its ability to dimension hop, but to understand Love Train, we first need to start with the Holy Corpse, as this is where the stand's power originates from and how it connects to Wonder of You. When we are first introduced to the Holy Corpse in part 7, it's this mysterious supernatural entity that affects people in different ways and possesses a variety of unique abilities. Sometimes it attaches itself to people and grants stands, other times it produces a stand of its own, some parts can reveal the location of other parts, and more. Although it's not until the final arcs of the story, when all of the corpse parts are reunited, that we see its true power, which is essentially to grant miracles, warping the fabric of reality to create a space devoid of all negative energy. Although because of how the world works in the alternate universe, there is a side effect of this power which most of the characters fail to understand, and it's ultimately the one who truly understood the corpse who was granted with this ability, being Funny Valentine, temporarily evolving his stand into D4C Love Train. Valentine had described the power of the Holy Corpse by saying, "In the shadow of happiness, there is cruelty. There is always a balance between the positives and negatives. That's what the Holy Corpse is." And throughout Steel Ball Run, we had seen the corpse used extensively and came to understand it as such, which one may interpret as taking something bad and moving it somewhere else, which it does do on a surface level, but there is an unseen mechanism at work that ensures this process, the darkness to the light, as the Holy Corpse in all of its power still operates within the laws of nature, and the rule of balance is more of a failsafe activated by a universal logic that goes beyond the power of the Holy Corpse, as the Holy Corpse itself does perform miracles. Its power is to give blessings of health and prosperity using positive energy, but it's only because of the unseen mechanism, the integral need for balance within the universe, its power can also be described as removal or an exchange, which is how Johnny Joestar interprets interpreted its power within JoJolion, as once a miracle is performed, the act of exchanging the positive with the negative is a power completely separate from the Holy Corpse, as what takes over from that point is the flow of calamity and the flow of reason, which is what the Wonder of You controls, a force which links together all occurrences in a greater chain of logic, creating these elusive laws of nature Araki depicts. The flow of calamity also seems to work through a logic of karmic retribution, that every deed or action has a consequence and evil deeds bring about suffering. This logic is further explored by the character Mamazuku nearing the end of JoJolion. As he says, it's karmic retribution, how you interact with society in general. Everything you've done up until this point all relates to his energy, referring to calamity, which provides insight into the calamities we have seen before and after this point. As earlier in JoJolion, during the legend of Johnny Joestar, when Johnny had used the Holy Corpse to remove his wife's rock disease, it was seemingly a coincidence that it was passed to his son George, as in theory it could have been passed to anyone else on Earth. And then when Johnny uses the corpse's power again to cure George, he encounters an even stranger coincidence of the rock disease being passed to himself, and then immediately being crushed by a nearby boulder, which at the time didn't make much sense, but in the grand scale of JoJolion's themes, this was Johnny encountering the flow of calamity, and his negative karma growing with each use of the Holy Corpse, eventually ending his life, which reinforces the theme of positive and negative energy on a micro scale, as not only must there be balance within the universe, but also on an individual level it seems. You get back from the world what you put in. So we must understand that the Holy Corpse and calamity are one and the same. Every removal or miracle is sucking up positive energy, and through the flow of calamity redistributes the negative, which is illustrated clearly by D4C Love Train, as when Valentine is gifted with his gap in space, throughout the fight we see constant examples of this redirection. Whenever Johnny shoots or tries to attack Valentine, that negative energy is moved throughout the world and manifests in the form of random bouts of bad luck, such as a construction accident on the streets of Paris, a hunting accident, and a group of people falling onto the rails of an oncoming train, which isn't all too different from the Wonder of You. So as a kind of side effect, Love Train does cause calamity, it's just unable to direct where it goes, because what's moving the negative energy is the flow of calamity, a law of nature within the world, showing that the energy cannot be erased from existence, it needs to go somewhere, further establishing that theme of balance. So for how powerful Love Train is with its gap and redirection abilities, it does have a few drawbacks, the first being that it's insanely difficult to obtain. As remember, the only reason Valentine can even use this power is because the corpse was given a human vessel, being Lucy Steele, which developed an entirely different stand, Ticket to Ride, which is necessary for Love Train, needing a ticket to ride the Love Train. Good one, Araki? So if Valentine gets too far away from Lucy, he leaves Love Train's gap, leaving him fully exposed to negative energy again. And the only power seen able to truly overcome Love Train's gap was Tusk Act 4, which uses the infinite energy of the Golden Spin in order to transcend gravity and dimensions, physically breaking through the gap and entering a space which doesn't really exist anywhere, making this power similar to Josuke's Go Beyond, which is also an attack that doesn't exist, therefore can transcend the laws of nature, like miracles and calamity not being bound to any rules or logic. So with a better understanding of what Love Train really is, what can defeat it, and the rules surrounding the ability, we can now move on to the opposite side of this power, which is the Wonder of You. So as previously mentioned, the Wonder of You controls calamity, but it's not that straightforward, as the user Toru can't directly deal out calamity at will. The power acts more like a defense mechanism similar to Love Train, so someone can only encounter a calamity if they actively pursue the stand or the user. Although this concept of pursuing is also a bit vague, as we see examples of people encountering calamities even if they see the stand or discuss plans to pursue. So it has this really scary sense of omnipotence, being able to exist anywhere whenever it's needed. The stand also has the ability to physically exist, being able to take on a distorted version of a real person's face, which can change between its human and stand form when needed or based on who's looking at it. So while switching between stand form and the head doctor, it's almost like the stand has two users sharing one mind, adding to the abstract nature of the stand, never really knowing if what you're looking at is real or not. So besides these physical abilities, there's of course the calamity aspect, which again isn't as simple as the stand controls calamity. Rather, the stand can't really control anything. It simply wears calamity around itself like a shield, and whoever gets close to it is attacked, in the form of random bouts of bad luck or extremely negative coincidences. Toru doesn't even control the nature of the calamity or how it attacks, he can only choose the priority, and all of the attacks are decided by the flow, or fate it could be thought of, which is unpredictable. There's also a multiplier aspect to this ability ability that works in a few different ways, where the Calamity one encounters will increase in power. This can relate to someone's karmatic energy, which I mentioned earlier, and another example of this is the fate of Joban Higashikata, who racked up a lot of negative karma through evil deeds throughout JoJolion and was fatally wounded by a minor calamity. Another multiplier is distance, meaning the closer you are to the stand or user, the greater impact it will have. So there's no denying that the Endless Calamity is an overwhelmingly powerful stand, and in 99% of matchups is unstoppable, but the stand is also quite limited in the fact that it's almost purely a defensive type stand and doesn't offer the user much control. But this works for Toru, as what it takes to achieve his goal doesn't necessarily involve fighting stand users proactively, so if anyone does try to stop him, they will passively be attacked by his stand with little to no effort, which most of the time works out. Although the biggest shortcoming for Wonder of You is Toru himself and his limited understanding of his power. Toru carries a naive confidence throughout the story, believing he's an unstoppable force that will always be protected by Calamity because it's all he's ever known, believing it's all there is, the most powerful force and an inescapable flow, unaware of nature's proclivity for balance, not realizing that for every calamity caused, there is an equal amount of positive energy within the world. And it's this law of nature which eventually leads to Toru's defeat, being Josuke, who was born as the result of a calamity, an aftershock that buried Kira and Josafume below the rocks of the earth. But what emerged was hope and the miracle of Go Beyond, a miracle that would have never existed if it wasn't because of a calamity. So now with a better understanding of these two abilities, when it comes to a standoff between Love Train and the Wonder of You, Miracles versus Calamity, I gotta say that Love Train comes out on top handily, 10 out of 10 times. The reason for this is because D4C Love Train is within the same tier as Tusk Act 4 and Go Beyond, meaning these are all abilities that break reality. They don't just manipulate or control the laws of nature, they exist outside of them, which is the complete opposite of how the Wonder of You operates. Wonder of You trusts in the laws of nature, and it's through knowing that calamity will reach everyone, Toru remains confident in his abilities. It's only when he's faced with Go Beyond, something which exists outside of calamity, he's able to be defeated, which is nearly the exact same concept as Love Train. Love Train is a gap in space, its own dimension, which logically doesn't exist anywhere, therefore negative energy cannot reach it, which is the reason why he was able to avoid calamity. So based on everything we've seen from these two stands, if Valentine were to pursue Toru, he would have no way to fight back. The attacks from Wonder of You wouldn't be able to break through the gap like we saw Tusk do because it's so bound to reality. It can't control any form of gravity or spin energy. So if Toru got close enough to Love Train, Valentine could just walk right up to him, redirecting as many calamities as Wonder of You can send out. So although Love Train can overcome the Wonder of You's ability, it doesn't automatically mean he wins, as in an actual fight scenario between the two, it would most likely end in a stalemate, as they both heavily rely on their enemy pursuing them. Pursuing, of course, being the Wonder of You's activation, and Valentine with Love Train is limited to the area around Ticket to Ride. As well as in order for Valentine to attack, he needs to leave the gap, even if it's just for a split second. But when facing off against Wonder of You, as soon as Valentine comes back to reality, he will encounter an instant calamity, making him unable to attack Wonder of You. So ultimately, the stands cancel each other out, both being hard counters, which honestly is the most reasonable outcome, considering they're like a yin and yang sign, complete opposing forces existing in harmony, and neither can overtake the other, even if I personally would consider Love Train to be the superior stand. So I hope this matchup gave you all a better idea of how these two stands work and the connection between them, as I personally consider the flow to be one of, if not the most interesting concept Araki has ever written in JoJo, which he explores in all different ways through his stance and characters. So thank you all so much for watching the video, and let me know what matchup you would like to see next on Standoff. Please drop a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more JoJo, the JoJo Lands, and manga content, and I'll talk to you all real soon in a new video. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm out. Peace.